Hi there, good morning. Welcome to this week midweek market analysis. Okay, so as usual, we'll run through some of the charts over here and highlight some of the opportunities to keep an eye on. To get started, we do have the dollar index. Now, from a dollar index perspective, right now we're expecting a little bit of a pullback. Now, ideally, this pullback, if it were to come back corrective in nature, which means it's going to be slow, towards the 102.60 to 102.40, around that 50 and 618 fips, and of course, more importantly, price needs to maintain above 101.75. That's where we're going to be expecting another pushback up to complete the larger degree wave 3 around 103.85. So that's where we have a short-term buy opportunity should price actually comes back down correctively. Now, based on some time expectation, we are looking at potentially Thursday or Friday for price to come back slow and test the area that we're interested to get involved in it. So over here, short term going into end of this week, remaining part of this week as well as next week, we're likely looking at some strength in the dollar moving forward. Now, if we translate that to the euro, that's where we're looking at more potential downside. Now, euro dollar from the recent peak over here around 1.1275 that was established somewhere in mid-July, we did see a impulsive three-wave move to the downside, WXY. Following that, we have a very short three-wave correction, WXY as well, forming a high at 1.1060, and then we get an impulsive drop. So right now, if you can see, if you kind of can get a decent correction towards 1.0970 to 1.0990, again, ideally they should go correctively, should go slow. Then we have a sell trade opportunity with a target back down at 1.0700. So of course, the important level here to take note is price should remain below 1.1060. And a corrective structure towards the key area, that's where we're going to get our sell. So same thing over here, the time expectation we are looking at is somewhere between Thursday and Friday for price to actually complete this corrective structure for us to take a trade to the downside. Now for GBP USD, I'm a little bit careful onto this. I think euro dollar is clearer, whereas the pound over here doesn't really present a clear structural setups for us to actually engage in a trade. Now, I do expect a little bit more downside to come back and retest the previous low at 1.2590, but of course you can see the room and the kind of like price range for us to kind of capitalize on this downside may not be as attractive, and it seems to be limited. So for that reason, while we're looking at potential bearish opportunities over here, the focus will be very much on the euro instead of the pound. Okay. And then for Aussie dollar, we did come and tag the previous significant low around 6460. Now that's actually a pretty significant one because you can see all the way in the past, there isn't much of a testing of that area. Okay, and this was established back in early July, end of May. Once price comes down, it tags it and it gives us a very strong little reaction. So we do expect some kind of reaction over here. Okay, right now we do have a break a little bit below it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that price is just going to continue lower, right? It can be a fake break and a bounce back up as well. So from wave structure perspective, we may have completed the 5-wave down as well. Bringing in the RSI, we do have a bit of a divergence set in. So my expectation over here is I'm more interested in the upside. But of course, this is not an immediate jump in and buy kind of trade. The idea is we want to wait for an impulsive pushback up, following that a corrective structure. And then that's where we're going to look for more upside potential. Right, so this one probably not going to be a trade opportunity that are going to put in too much emphasis or focus this week. But the setup would likely come to us perhaps next week. Okay, again, it takes time for the market to give us an impulsive push following a corrective structure before we take the trade to the upside. So keep an eye on this in terms of Aussie dollar, primarily next week, and not so much on like within the week. Okay, so right now we're just basically neutral. Dollar Canadian is a little bit tricky. Initially, we were expecting a simple 1, 2, 3 zigzag WXY structure. But right now, it does seems like this is developing a little bit of a flat structure. Okay, so let me take out the other label. It's still simply a 3-wave move, but because of flat, okay, we usually put a different label count to it. Instead of the WXY, we just put an ABC. Now, why is this slightly a flat? It's because this high here has actually broken the previous one. So it can either be a regular flat or, kind of like a running or expanding flat, right? So we still need some time to see what is it likely going to develop. Now, I don't think this is just going to continue running higher, simply because we're looking at how price actually break that previous high. Now, we broke it, but it broke it without any momentum, and it's corrective in nature, right? You can see the alternative color of the candles, right? White, red, white, red, white, red. The momentum to the upside is not very high, and often this can suggest that we may still get one more pushback down to complete the internal 1, 2, 3 before the bigger move up. So over here, if you are more of a counter trend on a shorter time frame, of course, you can consider to look for opportunities to the downside towards target at 1.3380, 1.3350. If you're more of a swing trader, then just remain patient, wait for the price to pull back, and we'll look for the buy from there on. Okay, so that's on the dollar Canadian side of things. Dollar yen, I'm remaining neutral, being patient on this as well. Okay, we kind of got a break above the previous high, but again, that doesn't mean anything much. We want to wait and see how price is going to develop from here. We may get an instant rejection in the short term as well. If that's the case, we can expect a little bit more downside. Alternatively, if this starts to do a little bit of a corrective structure down, then of course we can anticipate another move back up, right? So I think that's where we just need to be patient. We just want to give time to the market to prove to us what is the next structure is going to develop before we take action. So this week, unlikely anything is going to happen here for us. We're just going to let the market play out. Gold, we did come back and test the previous low over here, but again, we look at this, we ask ourselves, how is price coming down? It's very, very corrective in nature. I'm not too keen in selling it at where we are right now. Rather, I would say I'm a little bit more interested to see if we can get an impulsive break above. Okay, following that, a corrective structure. And then I'll very much be interested in the upside after that. So again, this requires time, and all we need to do is just be patient, come back perhaps next week, and see if we can get the structural setup that we're looking for. Crude oil, I'm bearish on this. Okay, we have a minor break of this trend line. Again, I don't really put much emphasis onto trend lines, breaks, and such. But it's just basically giving me a little bit more information, okay, that this down move here is something a little bit more significant, right? It gives us kind of like the momentum to break through this, give a little bit more insights into it. Okay, but we don't just trade just because the market actually broke down, right? Or broke that trend line. But right now over here is if you can get a decent size of a correction, okay, so some kind of a little 3-wave pullback, okay, that's where we can look for opportunities to look for the sell, right? So to me, as long as price maintain below 8495, we did get this little move down. Okay, if we can get another corrective structure over here, that would be perfect for a potential sell as long as price remains below 8495. Now the target here is somewhere back at 75.95, or you round out a little bit to 76, and that will be a short-term sell trade target. Now crude oil has run up quite significantly, so it's just natural for price to actually pull back a little bit. Okay, and this is actually something that often occur in the market, right? Whenever we have a huge runaway, there's a good possibility the market will eventually do a deeper retracement. So that's what we're capitalizing right now on crude oil. Okay, now if you stretch this, you can see this area is definitely very important. So my suggestion is, of course, any sell here, you probably want to just take profit once it comes down, right? Now next we have the S&P index. Okay, so S&P index is continued to fall. Again, it's not something that is surprising. We have kind of shared, we're expecting a deeper pullback, especially, again, after a huge run away. Right now, we are short-term bearish, which means that we still continue to expect a little bit more downside. From Elliott Wave perspective, there's a good possibility we'll see price comes down to its 4380. Okay, that's where the previous wave 4 is. And we'll just wait for a 3-wave pullback for a potential short-term sell. Now the reason for that is because you don't want to get involved in the sell here. This structure pattern is what we call a crawl. Okay, and often a crawl suggests that the momentum to a particular direction is slowing down and a reversal is likely gonna be starting. So this move is to the downside and we get a crawl to the downside. It suggests that the momentum to the downside is weakening and there's a good chance we may get some kind of a pullback or a temporary reversal, and therefore we'll be patient and wait for this 3-wave pullback and look for a sell at a much better price, right? At least for the short term to the downside. Okay, so over here we also see the divergence happening. So there's no reason to be selling at this particular price point. My take is wait for a decent pullback, then look for the short-term sell. Now, last one here to cover in this week's video would be the Euro Pound. Okay, so Euro Pound right now I'm seeing a very nice little internal 3-wave in white, WXY. And then in the bigger structure here in yellow, we also have a forecast of a WXY, right? So market tends to move in 3. Internally, we have 3 move here. Okay, so externally, in the bigger scale, we're also expecting a 3 move drop. And of course, if we break this down into smaller parts, we have our first move here. This will be developing potentially the second. And then we'll be taking the trade to the downside, right? So if we can get a corrective structure here towards 8620, 8630, that will be a decent sell as long as price remains below 8670, and our target here will be 8515. Okay, so this is another opportunity to keep an eye on for this week itself. Again, this would likely build in going into maybe Thursday or Friday. Okay, yeah, so it's definitely not something that you just jump in immediately. Okay, but keep watch to that. You may get something within this week, okay, closer towards the end of the week. Okay, so that's all from me. All the best for this week over here, and we'll see you guys in the next one.